The Business of Cleaning, the podcast that brings cleaning industry expertise straight to your ears. We interview professionals from all over to bring our listeners knowledge of how to achieve success within their business. Season 1 is about change management and enabling you to both face and create change in all aspects of your company. We're talking management, HR, suppliers, and more. Let's sweep right into the episode. My name is Haley with the Business of Cleaning podcast. I am your podcast coordinator and host. Today, we're going to be talking about the changing needs of customers, and we have Milo George here with us today from TurfTecs to talk about his experience within his industry and how it shifted, especially with relation to COVID. So if you don't mind, Milo, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us more about TurfTecs?
Sure. I'm Milo George, CEO of TurfTecs. Our primary business is cleaning, maintaining, repairing, doing safety testing of artificial turf sports fields. I've been in the business about 15 years now, and we're growing rapidly, but due to this moving fluidness of COVID, it's been a challenge this year. It's been a challenge.
Yeah, you guys have had a bit of a roadblock in regards to, business, I bet, with, it's kind of crazy, but obviously with turf, there is it's been a shifting market to start with.
True.
So over these last 15 years that you've been in it, what have you seen starting out to now? What has that demand looked like in that shift with the customers?
When we originally got into the business, we had the companies that were selling turf basically telling their customers, you don't need to do maintenance on these fields. That's part of their selling process. Literally had it in their sales brochures, no maintenance required. Not a belief I've been in for anything of a capital purchase, some hardscapes. You need to do maintenance. So we had some situations where some prospects had some issues with their fields, and the company that installed them was no longer in business. So they called us to see if we could take care of them. We went in and started fixing the issues with them, and the word got out. That's like, hey, these guys can make these fields look good. They make them look like new again. They play well. They know what they're doing. And over the years now, maintenance of artificial turf sports fields is a mandatory, in vogue thing to be doing. We have found we can extend the life of the fields by 20-25%, and we can check yearly on the safety factor of it. It's a smart investment. I've had people ask me, do you have to do maintenance on artificial turf fields? And I'll say no, but you don't have to change the oil and filter in your car either. But if you want them to last longer, it's a known fact. We've got data to support it. It does make a difference. It's a good investment.
Mm-hmm. And not just lasting longer, right, too? It comes back to the reliability of that field, just like with your car. The reliability of your car comes back to its maintenance.
True, and really, our company objectives is first one is safety. I mean, the field has to be safe. It cannot necessarily look the greatest, but if it's still safe, then that's we've met that first goal. So safety is the first factor. Playability. Some of these fields are designed with certain playing characteristics, and with proper maintenance, you can preserve those characteristics. So that's our second objective. Longevity, which is the dollar side of it, which a lot of owners definitely have to look at that. That's our third objective. And of course, presentation. It's got to look good. And that just falls in place if you're addressing the other three issues.
Mm-hmm. So I guess when you mentioned the playing characteristics, so what do you mean by that? I guess I'm not as familiar with that world of things.
Some fields, let's say, are strictly playing for football, and that surface will have certain characteristics where it might be a little softer because there's a lot of body to surface contact on it. Where soccer, they want a little faster field, a little harder field, so that might be a little different there. There's another sport, field hockey, where that's totally different, and the maintenance on that is just total separate from everything else. So when you start looking at fields that have multiple sports on them, We maintain several that have football, soccer, lacrosse, rugby. You have to kind of look at what's the main focus on it and address those in particular. But yes, the playing characteristics they're designed in by the characteristics of the companies that sell these fields, install them, and with proper maintenance, we can help keep those in tune with what the fields were purchased for.
So, what has been, I guess, out of curiosity, what's been the worst field that you've ever had to come onto? And you don't have to name what it was, but what was, what did it look like?
Um, that's a really good question. We've run into a number of fields where the fiber, the green material, has just completely released from the backing, and it looks like cut grass laying all over the place. It's kind of disgusting. We've run into a number of those fields. If you could go to our website, we have pictures of some of the most disgusting fields we've run into. Um, some field owners do not do a good job of, what's the word I want to use here, I guess restricting what enters the field. We've been on fields where we've removed pizza, chicken bones, bolts, screws, all sorts of bottles, caps, cigarettes. It's pretty disgusting. So certain fields, would win on worst ever on certain aspects, and other fields would win on others. I guess there's the ones that I get really concerned about are really hard, and those are not safe to play on. That's the ones that concern me. The ones that are disgusting, we can fix that pretty easy. But it's the ones that have compaction to them that present us with the biggest challenge, and we can address it, but the owner should not let those fields get to that particular condition. So
I'm assuming then that you've had some where you've had to turn around and say, listen, this isn't a maintenance issue. You need a new field. Have you had one of those moments or a couple of those moments where?
Several. And I understand the owner's challenges because it's financial. And I can think of 3 or 4 fields right now that really do need replaced, and they just do not have it in their budget to replace them. And I'm concerned that there will be a day where NCAA will step in and have requirements of these fields, and if they don't meet these minimum requirements, they will not be able to host home games. I know of some D2, D3 colleges that will not go to certain competitors' fields in their conference because the artificial turf's not safe to play on, and it's a problem, and it comes down to financial. Most schools, know that they have to replace them at one time, and part of our process is making our customers, our clients, aware of future needs. So after we do a complete maintenance process, we'll go in and do a GMAX test, which is a test of the hardness of the surface, how well it absorbs any shock and impacts. And I'll give that report to the customer with other impacts or other issues and concerns we have. And then we also say, our expectations are this field will last X number of years longer, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And we found that they greatly appreciate that, and if it gets to a point where it's really a concern, I will make a strong emphasis that, by 2000 or 2021, you really do need to replace this field. And then they come back. Now we don't have that option right now, but we do test, we do recommend to give them an idea to stay ahead of it and budget that money accordingly.
But kind of going off of the fact that you have to kind of remind people, and obviously you're going to have a certain dynamic with customers at that point. You returning to the same fields probably multiple times. How often do you maintenance them?
Generally, we do what's classified as a deep annual cleaning. The owners are supposed to do cleaning and grooming on their own on a regular basis, which sometimes does not happen. But the process we do, we come in with a very strong vacuum system, and we make 2 passes over the field with the vacuum. There's a magnet on that as well, picking up any metal debris. Then we come through with a decompaction device. The turf has rubber and sand granules in it, and they can get compacted over time. And so our device does decompact that, and we'll brush it. And that's really needed once a year. Now, if you're in warmer climates such as the southeast, southwest, I would consider doing it twice a year. But we're just there annually. But we're on call. Somebody needs something, question, concern, give us a call. We've had people call us, or customers call us up and say we've had a tear on such and such on the logo or whatever. We'll pop in there and get it fixed. I took a phone call Friday where one of our clients, the football stadium, about 2 hours before the game, had a massive rain event, and the field started to float. There was an air bubbles coming up, and the field was floating. And it's like, what do we do? And it's like, go get a cup of coffee and come back. It'll be fine, But they were tempted to go out, no, you don't want to step on it, to push the air out of it. It's just things like that. I've had clients call up and say, what's this about lead in turf fibers? Is it safe or not? Well, we stay very highly aware of what's going on with the industry and all the safety factors. And it's like, here's what you need to do. Here's where you go to search that data and confirm what we tell you. But, so we make ourselves available for technical support and repairs and whatever all year long. That's part of our package.
No, that's amazing. Obviously, with us starting this podcast, part of what we're trying to do is provide information. Mm-hmm. So seeing you guys doing the same, it helps people, especially right now. And that's where I'm going to kind of shift a little bit. Sure. Is obviously the black sheep in the room is COVID. Mm-hmm. And you've had natural shift over time with demand increasing and people becoming aware of, hey, we've put all this money into it. We want to keep this field longer, right. So how have things shifted since, what was it, February or March, when we first got the issues to stay at home?
We were over in western Pennsylvania. I remember the dates very specifically. It's March 17th, getting some fields ready to go for lacrosse. Lacrosse is an early spring sport, and college level, they want these fields looking nice for lacrosse, and I agree. We were at a college, and they had already sent the students home. Any of the administration that could work from home was already home. We're out on this field all by ourselves, and one of the administrators says, this is your last day, you're done. We're closing the campus down completely. And then we started getting calls from customers coming up next few days. Yeah, we're shut down. Nobody's allowed on campus. It's like, then we have no idea whether it's 1 week, 30 days, 3 months. We have no clue. Are you still interested in having our services? Yeah, but nobody's allowed on campus, period. So it really put us into a quandary as to what to do. And I guess if we're not allowed, then we were told to leave on another field we tried to get on. So it really created a nightmare for us. And it did for the schools, because we can't do everybody's field in the next 2 or 3 days. We have to have days scheduled out. And it was really, really a challenge for a while. And we just basically stayed in contact with our clients through email and phone calls, and asked for updates and whatever. And everybody had the same answer: we don't know. So we respect that, and we said, well, we'll stay in contact, and we'll stay back until it's ready to go. And it took a while before everything started opening up.
Yeah. Well, my dad's birthday is around that time because that's St. Patty's Day. But I remember for us, for like our campus, it was everybody went on spring break, and then during spring break, they're like, well, we're not coming back yet. Mm-hmm. It'll probably be a couple weeks. Well, it took an entire rest of the semester and summer semesters. Yep. And now there's kids on campus. I drove past campus today and saw a class having session outside because they could distance and things. Mm-hmm. So obviously it's months later and we're not back to normal. We're talking 6 months later. So what does it look like today as we're seeing schools start to shift back? Obviously, we're hearing more about sports coming back, but they're limited. How does that look for you now that it's starting to sort of open up?
Back in June, as we were reaching out to clients again,
Mm-hmm.
basically I was saying, asking the first question, are you still wanting us to provide maintenance? Because even, it's just like a car. I hate to use a car as an example, but even if you don't drive the car very many miles, every so many months you do need to provide, oil changes and things like that. So, you're still going to need, some annual maintenance on that field, especially if there's a chance of opening up this fall. So some clients said, yeah, let's get this thing scheduled, which COVID helped us in some way because a lot of schools will have summer camps on these fields and they're just buried with activities. So, we have to squeeze in between those events. Well, those events weren't happening. So once a school, university or college said, hey, let's do it, I'd ask what dates are available. Well, pick one. Most of them are available. So that was a blessing in disguise for us. But then there were a number of clients that felt like, well, we're not so sure we're going to open up this fall. And the state funding was cut dramatically, and our needs for PPE and other things to, provide safety due to COVID is really dug into our budgets. So let's put it on hold until we get a little better picture. And July 1 was the shift of the fiscal year for essentially all schools. And once we got into July 1, they had a little better idea what their funding was. And a lot of them came back and said, let's get in here and get this done. And we still have had some that waited right up until, the day, the week before they're going to have their game. Still got a chance to get at us. Yeah, we got a lot of them. It made for some long days and, long weeks, but we got them done. But it provided a lot of challenges with scheduling, and I get it from the administrator side. It's so fluid, you don't know. And not that our maintenance service, we're not a lot of money. It's a very, very, very tiny percentage of their total budget. But these people that have to provide, the administrators or the janitorial staff and such, their demands are so much higher now. Budgets are very, very tight, and I understand if it's not there, then let's see what we can do to help you with your budget challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you are working with the same people who are working with
Yes.
the cleaning staff
Yes.
in the building. So,
Yeah.
which we can imagine we're bringing kids back into school. I mean, not everybody is to the same degree. There's actually parking on campuses now, but we are bringing kids back into the school.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, now there's a higher demand than there's ever been to keep those surfaces clean. Out of curiosity, too, because we didn't touch on this yet, when you go in for your yearly maintenance, how long are you on that field to get it cleaned?
Generally about 6 hours. Takes us about 6 hours. And the process is involved, like I said, a double vacuuming, a decompaction, a brushing. And then we generally do an enzyme cleaner, which is a very unique cleaning process. CDC even recommends do not put disinfectants on playgrounds, artificial turf, things like that. We've taken a lot of time to study this whole thing, and we've learned that just putting on disinfectants, you just can't disinfect dirt. It's just not possible. The chemicals in the disinfectants are consumed by the contamination on the surface and may not have much of an impact. So we are big believers in clean. If you have a clean surface, it's really hard for it to support microbes, including bacteria and viruses and molds and such. So we have an enzyme cleaner. Ours is quite unique. It's exclusive to us. It has a very high level of protease, which attacks proteins, which, basically anything living has a high consistency of proteins, but on also very unique attribute of our enzyme product is that it actually continues to work up to 170 degrees. Most enzymes break down at 110, 120. 170 is a big deal because fields will get up to 150, 160 degrees in the middle of the day. And then once we hit the enzymes, then we'll do a Gmax test, and that's where I come up with my temperatures, because part of the Gmax test we have to take the temperature of the turf. And I remember over in Cleveland back in early July, the field in the middle of the afternoon was testing 158 degrees. So if you sprayed a regular enzyme on it, it would basically disintegrate in just a few seconds, where our product will continue to work. We've also done some testing with our luminometer. We've got a luminometer, and that gives us an idea with relative light units. It's a reflectance of the contamination on the surface. And we had one of the schools question if we could help them with their playground, since we were using the enzymes on the turf. And a little history how well the product works. Back in was it 3 years ago in Texas, when Hurricane Harvey hit, a lot of fields were flooded with a class 3 flood contamination, which means it's everything. It's chemical, fecal, petro, it's everything. Fields were deemed not safe to play. We sent down lots of our enzyme product and had them applied, and they all tested safe to play on. So we took our luminometer and sampled the playground equipment, and they had just washed it down with soap and water, scrubbed it down with soap and water, and it came up. We sampled a couple different sets of equipment, and it came up with 7,000 or 8,000 relative light units. Medical grade, the threshold is 30. If you have more than a 30 relative light units, you have failed. We hit it with the enzymes. We brought them down below 200 with one shot. And we know from experience multiple applications of our enzymes will continue to reduce the product. The difference was they were spending a couple hours scrubbing down their playground equipment. We took 10 minutes. That's all it took. You just spray it. So we've had a lot of luck spraying these fields down with the enzymes, keeping bacterial growth of it. And again, I have before and after pictures on our website that is pretty shocking. So there's been a lot of interest in the product this year, and it's safe. Anybody can apply it. It is a very safe. I wash my hands and stuff. It's that safe.
How often should somebody apply that enzyme then?
Pre-COVID, my recommendations were in the spring prior to track and field events. As you know, a lot of these particular high schools, there is the running track around the stadium field. We've seen, the athletes will warm up on the turf before their event, or they'll lounge on the turf between events. I really think the enzymes ought to be there to get rid of all that contamination before track and field. The second application I would recommend, just right after the 2-a-day practices in the early August. So by the time they finish those, are up in mid-August. I recommend an application then, and then about mid-season for the fall events. So about 3 applications a year. Post-COVID, I'd probably look at 4 weeks of activities. Probably ought to spray it good. Just as a precautionary purpose.
About once a month then.
About once a month, yeah. During, obviously, January, skip that time up here. Down south, yeah, they use them all the time. So, but yeah, about once a month would be good.
So, are you guys doing playgrounds then now?
We've had some calls, and yeah, we're going to start applying playgrounds, or we can sell it to the owners for them to apply it, because it's just very
easy.
Simple, very easy. Yeah, we've identified a very good fogging piece of equipment that you can walk up and as just a casual walk around the playground equipment, and it's clean. And if it's a little damp when the kids come out, there's nothing there to hurt them. It's a natural product, and I've had some, well, should we do it between classes? Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how readily, this virus is carried around from person to person. If you do need to do it between classes, it's just a couple minutes and you're done, Daily would be sufficient in my mind.
With kids on the playground and stuff, especially knowing kids.
Yeah, I know. Fingers go everywhere.
Everywhere. They're sharing masks already.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I think that's good for anybody to know because that's obviously a side that people are like, well, how do you keep the playgrounds cleaned? Kids are back on them again. And so now there's a way and a safe way. How long have you carried that product?
It's been 12 years now. Back then, we worked with a very large company that made disinfectants, and their sales manager and I went to school together. And I called him up and I asked him. I said, we were getting a lot of calls about disinfectants. Back 12, 13 years ago, MRSA was a big concern on these fields. And my studies had told me that MRSA couldn't really survive all that long on a turf surface just because of the dry and the heat on it. So I visited with him, and he said, "Well, we're developing a disinfectant for artificial turf. We need to test it." And I said, "We need to test it. We really do." So we found a couple fields, and we created some areas with masking tape that were like 40 feet long and 15 feet wide. And they took their technicians and swabbed several areas within that section, and then grew those out into a Petri dish. And then we saw what kind of growth was in there. Then we went in and sprayed different products, different rates, different ways of doing it. And their technicians come in, swabbed them again, grew them out. And, we found in several places 7 million colony forming units of bacteria per gram, which means, microscopically it's crawling. And we could reduce it down to less than 6 CFUs, and which means it's not going to survive. So it was a good learning experience for us. My concern with the disinfectants is that, that chemical can build up over time. And I also knew that you can't disinfect a dirty surface. How do we clean it? Well, soap and water is fine, but soap needs to be rinsed off, and rinsing 80,000 square feet could be a challenge.
Just a small one.
Just a small challenge. So we knew that wasn't the solution. So we took a while to find out an enzyme that would work, and we found it, luckily. So.
And now you've been using it for a while, so you know it works. And
yes. We've got lots of dog kennels love us. They think that product is great.
Oh man, my dad finds out about that, he'll be upset.
There you go.
So, but no, that's great because then when COVID hit, you already said, I have a guaranteed product. It's safe. It's not toxic. You can actually interact with it, and it does what you're seeking. And it's not your typical disinfectant, but look at what it does. And you've done the research, and you've.
One of the challenges we found on turf is that it develops a biofilm over time. And, I'm not going to get into the definition of a biofilm, but it's a microscopic layer that can harbor, all sorts of contamination. And there's research that has proven that bacteria and virus and such can actually survive in that biofilm and protect it from disinfectants. And you really need to remove that biofilm before you even apply a disinfectant. And the enzymes will do that. And I've had more than one school step back and, they'll look at that field 20, 30 minutes after we finish spraying it. And it's like, wow, this thing looks brand new again. And it's got a deeper, more lush color to it. And what had happened is the enzymes literally dissolved, ate off that biofilm. And now we're seeing the yarn there, the turf fibers, instead of the layer of biofilm on it. So that's a challenge, I think, for all surfaces is biofilm. And an enzyme is a great way to destroy a biofilm. And if you have a biofilm on a surface and you keep spraying with disinfectants, sanitizers, all you're doing is just adding to the biofilm. You're really not doing anything. So, we've been a big believer over the years, clean, clean, clean.
So it sounds like with this enzyme, no matter what side of the cleaning world you're coming from, what you're looking at, cleaning, whether it's commercial, in-house, or whatever, this enzyme is something they should be introducing, that it's going to make their jobs easier.
Yeah, and it's very, very safe, and particularly on surfaces, high-touch surfaces or artificial turf fields. When you spray a disinfectant, the surface has to be totally dry, completely dry before you re-enter. With these enzymes, that's not an issue. So if it's a little damp, it's a naturally occurring biological a product. I mean, it's biology. It's not chemistry. So there's really nothing there to hurt you. So easy to apply, safe to apply. Can't really do it wrong. It's really pretty amazing what a quality enzyme will do.
I mean, I think I use an enzyme scrub on my face when it's not broken out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're using it on skin, obviously it's safe
Right,
for skin,
absolutely,
hopefully.
absolutely. I mean, and enzymes exist in our body for digestion too. So, what the manufacturer's done is they've isolated different strains of enzymes, different type of enzymes to go after different challenges, and so it's can be designed for particular situations. So, one of the things that pre-COVID I used to say, during a soccer game or a football event, if somebody, gets a bloody nose or gets a cut, and, if you have blood on the surface, even artificial turf is considered a hard surface by the CDC, which means impermeable. It needs to be cleaned up a certain process, and that is you wipe up the body fluids, and then you clean the surface. Well, if you spray it with these chemicals, you have to wait until it's dry before it's safe to re-enter. I don't know that you're going to have everybody wait 10 minutes for that thing to dry. So with the enzymes, I qualify it as long as the surface is not slippery. Play ball, and it's not going to be with the enzymes.
I mean, they've played on slippery fields before too, so.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing how again, clean. If you have a clean surface, you're going to be safe. Very safe.
Yeah, so it's great. We've dove into, then I'm going to kind of start wrapping up, but we've dove into exactly how your business has shifted, how your customer demand has shifted. And we've talked now about how COVID has caused an even greater shift. And basically, you have your services in general, but you also have a specific product that's allowed you to adapt to that situation. And it's made you versatile. We really dove into the enzyme piece. Very intriguing to me, and I'm sure to our listeners as well. But with that, and with customer demand in general, do you have any advice on how to just help, because you created demand for your product, so how to help maintain demand through like these volatile situations?
Well, we do two things. One, we reach out to our customers, not being a pest. Drop them a phone call, drop them an email. Hey, do you need anything from us? I dropped an email out to one of my very first clients, and it's like, hey, Paul, you're an athletic director for a rather large college or university. What do you need from us? What do you need? You know what we do. You know what we can provide. What do you need from us now, and what do you anticipate in the future? What are you thinking here? And then I'm going to survey 3 or 4 other people to start seeing if I can see some commonality of what the desires are. So we reach out to our clients and we ask them, what do you need? What are you thinking here? How can we help? And then the other thing is that we will jump in and offer them ideas. It's like, hey, we saw this, we tried this. It may have some application in your situation. Think about it. But we listen to our customers. We listen, and just in conversations, they'll mention things that it's like, Milo, make a note to self, and we'll go back and think on that. And after about third, fourth, fifth person mentions that over whatever period of time, it's like, yeah, there's a need out here. So contact your customers, listen to them, to them. They'll tell you what they need.
Yeah, so I guess it boils down to that communication, that you're accepting expertise from the people you're servicing, and then you're sharing the knowledge that you have. So you're coming to the board with something right off the bat.
And if we don't have the answer, we dig and we dig and we dig until we get good answers. And, we explain to the customer how we come about our answers, and, and ask them if they, want to validate it. Here's our sources. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Milo. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise and also telling us a bit more about yourself. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Business of Cleaning, and we'll see you for the next episode.